Hi, everybody. We are back and we are recording this session. My name is Madam Ansa, and it is my pleasure to be here with you today. We're going to talk about some radical spreads that I love here in the Kitchen Witchy Tarot class. Anyone who doesn't already know me, I'm Madam Ansa, hardest working woman in show business.com. Hilariously, somebody just changed my website so that it says the laziest and best paid woman in show business.com. Both of those things now lead to me. But anyway, tarot is something that I love and something I'm honored to be here sharing with you today. I'm an event producer and community organizer and so forth, living in Richmond, Virginia. And if you enjoy this video, there are many more on the YouTubes. Just look me up, Madam Ansa and World Spirit Tarot. All my classes during this time are all level, pay what you can if you can. I realize we are all looking at significant economic and social instability at this time. So if you can throw in money, great. If you can't, then this is my gift to you. That being said, let's move forward. Today, we are here to talk about some spreads that I really enjoy and that I think you may enjoy also. If you have a deck with you at this time, you may wish to start shuffling your cards. They perhaps need a little freshening up. You may also want to have a notebook during this class to jot things down. If you find that you cannot jot fast enough, you can, of course, freeze the frame after, or you can take pictures of the spreads. So if you have any questions at any time, of course, feel free to drop those questions down in the chatty bar. Now, before we start doing anything specifically about spreads, I would like to take a moment to talk about creating optimal conditions for reading. Now, every person will arrive at their own sort of reading hygiene, your own etiquette, your own protocol or personal ritual. Whatever works for you is the correct thing. That being said, some of us benefit from engaging in a little bit of I don't want to say theatrics exactly, but going through the motions that tell that part of your brain that it is time to set aside some of your multitasking daily concerns and give yourself fully to the moment of working with your tarot, perhaps journaling about your tarot. Some of the things, if you are able, that you might consider doing, try to create a gentle environment to work in. Maybe you need to do it, in the subway on your way home from work. And if so, that's totally fine. Some folks will benefit from taking a little bit of quiet time in the morning, maybe with their cup of tea or maybe with their coffee, or maybe at night when you sit down to, settle down in bed and you're winding down. Maybe get off the screen and instead spend some time with your cards. So finding your sort of least restrictive environment, as it were, to work with the cards. Here in Awesome Town, we have a pretty busy, multitasking, multi-generational household, so there's often a lot going on. And if you're just going to sit down and read cards in the dining room, you have to know there'll be much slamming of doors and cats coming in and out and so forth. If you know that you need quiet, this is the time to withdraw to another corner of the house. Some folks benefit from taking a moment to physically clean some aspect of your environment. Maybe it's just wiping down the surface where you're going to read. Maybe it is actually sweeping or opening windows and doors. Maybe it is burning some incense in order to really clarify your intentions to that deep reptilian part of your brain that responds to smells as well as sights and sounds. Like tea, appeal to your senses. Your senses are, of course, the window to the transformative power of ritual. And if you're a low ritual person, again, it may be something as simple as just clearing some space, taking a moment to hold a warm teacup. I am always a person who will advocate against the consumer culture of goop witchcraft, where everything has to be you bought the right thing and everything is very expensive. I really believe that is not where our spiritual roots lie. So, you can probably find a kitchen witchy solution, hence the name of our class. Natural light is great if you have the benefit of that. Again, it tends to, whether it's candles or fairy lights, whatever, tends to tell that part of your brain that now is special time. Now is not screen time, spreadsheet time, and so forth. So if you have the opportunity to sort of create a nice environment for yourself, do that. Some folks, again, like to do the morning pages or do their tarot journaling at night before settling down. Some people need to do it on their phone because that's just the shape of our lives right now. Whatever you need to do is great. Uh, I will say, when you sit down with your cards, whether you sit down with another reader or whether you sit down and read for yourself, it'll behoove you to take a moment to think about arriving more fully in your body. And then beyond that, arriving more fully in your non-ego based, your sort of etheric self, if you want to think of it that way. I very much, when I sit down to read, I think about the palms of my hands. I think about the palms of my feet. I think about dropping my energy down into the ground. I think about setting aside the part of me that is a talky, chatty entertainer and trying to be just fully present as a conduit for information. It's cultivating a different skill set. So as you're sitting down, before you do your work, you can also say, today, am I ready to learn something about myself, even if it's uncomfortable? Am I ready to consider avenues to change or betterment, even if it's challenging? Is there good that I already do in the world that I have been unwilling to acknowledge? If the cards point that out, am I ready to receive the fact that I do good in the world, or that there's more work that I may yet be called to do? Tarot's not just about, diagnosing, like troubleshooting yourself like a car manual. It is also about optimizing yourself and your ability to live well for yourself and be of service to others. So take a moment with those concepts. Now, that being said, I'm about to throw a whole bunch of spreads, which is to say that is the shorthand word for the ways in which we lay out cards in a pattern in order to help us translate them with an eye towards understanding ourselves and our place in the universe. This assumes, as I give you these spreads, it assumes that you, for your purposes in real time, will already have cleared your mind, shuffled your cards, framed your question, selected your cards, and then laid them out in your action cam. Oh, look, my hands are coming from the other side. That's exciting. In your action cam, in your layout. Now, folks who have worked with me in the past will know that for my personal reading style, I tend to rely on the kitchen witchy or dinner table layout, which I'm going to share with you right now. It looks like lots of cards, but really it is as many or as few cards as you like. So what happens in this particular spread, I rarely ask my querent for their specific question. If they would like to volunteer, I'm happy to get that information. But sometimes folks sit down and they're asking for help specifically because they feel sensitive. They're not in a sharing sort of mood. That's fine. We take a moment. We arrive to be fully present. We shuffle. There's the question framed. Depending on the time, I will let the other person actually do all of the shuffling and selecting of cards. During quarantine, we're not doing that. And I have just had to sort of raise my energetic sensors, I guess, in order to make up the difference and pull the cards for them, as it were. But what I will do is, as they have got their question formulated in their mind and spreading the cards out, and just spread them across the table. And then with their non-dominant hand, I will have them feel across the whole surface. And if they're able to feel anything, warm, cold, tingly, anything, just a card that screams, pick me, I will have them lay them face down. And I will usually use 3 or 5, and they are not designated by place. In other words, it's not situational. I'm just saying, hey, I've invited 3 or 5 cards over for dinner. Hey guys, tell me what you think about this situation. Then we go through these. Every one of these 3 or 5 cards, we go, oh, look at that. There's an awful lot of wands here. There's an awful lot of major arcana showing up for you. Wow, it's really weird how everything sort of mirrors each other on either side. And you've got these strong female figures facing in towards a central point. Whatever you might determine as a person who is committed to discovering the patterns and the value of the patterns the cards can offer. We talk it out. We read it out. Perhaps the person responds. At some point, what often happens when you're doing this sort of kitchen witch dinner table spread, there'll be a card where you go, huh, well, I have some questions about card number 1. Everything makes sense to me, but maybe not card number 3. What happens then is that I will have the person once again set themselves up, feel across that pile of cards that's available, and then we will slide some more out, specifically saying, hey, cards, tell us some more about what you mean by card number 3. So maybe we'll pull 2 or 3 more cards. So in this way, it grows. So we start walking and talking our way through those. Now they've got 8 cards on the table. And they may say, I love this card. I hate this card. I had a client today who said, everything seems really good, but that one card in the middle, I'm kind of scared of that card. And I was like, oh, well, thank you for telling me. It's a great time for us to talk more about what this card brings. What does it mean? So then you lean into that one and maybe you pull a few more. In this way, this is just a, sort of a arbitrary demonstration, but you can see how those 3 or 5 cards start almost like they're like the mulch layer or the layer of compost, and then the rest of the reading can grow up out of that. And if you have time and the inclination, you can end up with many, many cards on the table, and this will have many permutations, but it's probably not going to be symmetrical. It's probably not going to, again, be positional. You may get up to the top here and go, huh, well, now we know that let's say that card number 8 is really about you needing to make a decision about this whole situation with work. We can now do a option A, option B kind of a reading from here. So your reading may grow and change as it goes through. I almost exclusively rely on this sort of organic kitchen witch flavor spread when I'm working with clients. For myself nowadays, I've been working more and more with structured spreads, and I'll be sharing some of those with you really as an opportunity for me to learn and to think and flex those muscles. But mostly I've gone years and years using variations of this. If you have questions about it, feel free to throw them up in the chat, and our Wiz in the control room will make sure that I know about it. But there it is. If you need to take a image of some kind, by all means do that. But now we're going to go to a simpler structure. It is the 1-2 wild card. Make sure I get this appropriately situated in the action cam. And thanks to Ramaruri Tribal for all of this cardboard, which is one of the things that they are gracious enough to supply us with over here. Very helpful for the crafting projects. So a 1-2 wild card is, as you can see, option 1, option 2, that which you have not yet considered. You can, of course, you could do a 1, 2, 3, 4 wild card if you're a person who is looking at 4 life options or 3 life options. This kind of a thing comes up. I find this sort of spread to be most useful when you're looking at very clear, like, do I go to this grad school or that grad school? Do I stay with the person that I've been dating, but my ex, really wants to try again? When you have a clear either or kind of a situation, it is most useful for me when I say to the cards, as I'm pulling them, you're like, hey, cards, hey, it's me. Are you there, cards? It's me, Ansa. We're going to do a 3-card spread. And what I want to ask is, what does my life look like in 3 months if I do option 1? What does my life look like in 6 months if I do option 2? So you can refine that question within there. You can be specific if you want to. But that third one is always, but what am I not thinking of? What is the road less traveled? What is the option that I have not yet considered? And you'll be very surprised sometimes what you get. As we showed earlier, you can piece that into one of these other kitchen witch flavored spreads sometimes. This is a great one to use if you are doing a party type setting where things need to be fast, or if you are seeing somebody you haven't seen in a long time and they're just like, oh, hey, I feel really weird asking you this because I don't want to take up your time, but do you think you can maybe help you out? This is a very concise way to convey a bunch of information. And that wild card, again, may give you some very unexpected data that gives a person something powerful to stretch out from. From there, let us go to our third, a little bit more complicated. This is our elemental compass rose. Make sure, is it Is it in there?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. My handwriting is so poor. I have to tell you, I labored mightily in order for these to be as legible as they are. My brain moves very fast. My hands move very fast. Therefore, my letters are not necessarily in English. I'm pretty sure that Enochian, that language of angels that was, so popular during the Elizabethan period, possibly the language of angels, or they just had really, really tawdry handwriting and they had to go, oh yeah, absolutely. It's something very mystical. So what we see here, when I say elemental compass rose, what I'm talking about is, of course, the 4 classic Western elements that we talk about in tarot: earth, air, fire, and water. They have come to mean metaphorically, once again, fire is about ambition, air is about ideas and intellect, water is about feelings. The suit of earth has come to mean management of resources, so basically your health and wealth. So in this case, this is the part where you just check in with yourself. This is a great reading for if you're one of those folks who wants to do a beginning of the month, or every year on my birthday, or this sort of rites of passage check-ins. This is not for solving a problem. This is more like, hey, self, how are we doing in there, self? So in this case, and you can, of course, set it up any which way you like, but I wanted to start with air, air being, if you're calling in the directions, air is often, the east. It is the dawn. It is the beginning. So in this case, you're like, hey, self, tell me a little bit about where I'm at right now on this full moon as compared to last full moon or next full moon. Let's make some notes of how I'm doing on how's my whole world of intellect? How's my whole world of new beginnings and all that kind of tenderness? Huh, interesting. How are we doing here as far as, fire, ambition, drive? What's the state of my suit of fire right now? And work your way around. So again, we've got water. Water is often considered the element of the West. If you have a different system of correspondences, by all means, lean into the thing that speaks to you. It is only written on cardboard, not in the cosmos. So you can do whatever works best for you. You can say, well, tell me about how I'm feeling in the feels department. Tell me about how I'm doing with my health, with my management of time, with my self-care. And then that one in the middle, you have 2 options here. Again, you can think of it as the wild card, like, hey, self, hey, deep cosmic self, what else do you have to tell me? What else do I need to know right now? Or you can complete that sort of traditional spiral of the elements and go through your air, fire, water, and then come to spirit and say, tell me something about how I'm doing here. This is an opportunity to have a very Western tradition mystical check-in with yourself, if you want to think of it that way. And for those of you who I know are beautiful keepers of journals and grimoires and so forth, you could do a beautiful rendering of this. There's my little nod to the compass rose part. But I'm sure that you could do an amazing job with this. Again, you could situate it any which way that you like. And if you want to get sort of ultra about it, you can say, here I am on this new moon or full moon or birthday or special occasion. And you could do one for yourself. I would only do it a few months out, but you could do, this full moon, next full moon, and then next full moon, like do a whole season for yourself and say, what is the state of my self likely to be at that time? Of course, we have free agency. We make changes. We are empowered to change the script in our lives if we want to. But it may help you get a look at sort of the cut of some of your issues as they might unfold over time. And then, when your 3 months are up, you can go back, go through your journal, evaluate how that went for you. Maybe try it on the new moon, or try it on a different occasion. Try it when you're menstruating. Try it, every other Saturday. Find some sort of cycle that feels good for you to check in. And it's another way you can sort of be with yourself as you build some low ritual as you march through time. So, and I'd be curious, I know some of you are very diligent journalers and tarotists, so I'd be very curious to hear how that goes for you. Now we've got 2 more that I wanted to work on today. This one is based on a jealousy spread by Liz Worth. I took some liberties and changed some things around, but I wanted to make acknowledgement to her work. This is a 5-card spread. Once again, everything is mutable. You could change it to suit yourself, your circumstances. So this is, your jealousy and envy. This could be relational. It can be, somebody else, how you're feeling about somebody else in your workplace who's experiencing a different trajectory. This is the Aaron Burr spread. Um, so that first card, in the context of this person or this relationship, what do I fear? Oh, and I recommend do not turn the cards over until you have laid them all down. So you're going to be thinking, hey, cards, shuffle, shuffle, meditate, state your intention and so forth. And you're going to be thinking, what do I fear here? Put that card down. What do I hope for in this situation? Next card, what can I learn here? What resources do I have essentially to help manage, grow, change, cope with my situation? And then 5, very important, like what is the reality of what's happening? Because the experience that you may be having inside of your struggle may be 95% different from whatever is happening in the outside world. So doing a reading that only explores your feels will tell you a lot about how you're feeling, but it may not, in fact, give you any concrete check-in with, what's going on with your classmate who won the scholarship, or with your boyfriend's boyfriend or whatever the reading ends up being about. So Liz Worth's original jealousy spread was very specifically like about relationship envy, I would say, or relationship jealousy, but as I was working with it, it occurred to me that it could easily apply to all kinds of any place where you've got the insecurities. So this is one of those ones where you're not going to sit down and whip it out at a party and have a good time, right? This is where you are sitting down to do some work and ask yourself those questions. Am I willing to learn some uncomfortable truths about myself? Am I willing to really look at how my particular challenges and mania fit in with the reality of the environment outside me? Where am I doing well? When it says, what can I learn here? You may find that you have a great capacity to engage in empathy for others or so forth. What resources do you have? You may find that you are very well supported, or you have great role modeling and so forth. You may find that you are actually in a very good position to at least come to grips with naming what you are working through, and that is a great place to start. So as I modified this spread based on making it more mutable for myself and for you, you of course can change it up likewise. You could change any of these into, you could change any of the positions. The challenge in spreadcraft, as I am coming to understand, is just always to make sure that you create opportunities for self-affirmation or self-revelation, and that you also challenge yourself or your expectations. Now, if you were reading this for a friend, if they sat down and you didn't know a lot about their situation, you'd probably have to get way into the weeds of their, why is something triggering for them? What aspects of mass culture engendered this particular insecurity and so forth. So again, not a party spread, but entirely mutable to work in accordance with your experience. Now I've got one more that I wanted to work with you today, and this is from Interrobang, who I have spoken a lot about. I know some of you have actually started getting her newsletter and so forth. I highly recommend it. This is the Queer Enough spread. She has a whole slew. Now, for those of you that may not identify as queer, that's totally fine. This spread, likewise, while queer is the language we're going to use for the purposes of this exercise, this is really the you are queer enough. But if there's any area of your life where you feel you have been challenged, are you talented enough? Are you smart enough? Are you brave enough? Are you charismatic enough? Like whatever it is that you might have your scary spot, your scared spot, I feel that this spread can speak to that and could easily, while I don't want to diminish the centrality of are you queer enough, as being a motivational feature for Evie in the making of her spread. It's like it even has a rainbow. It's so cute. I do believe that it's adaptive for you, whatever your particular challenges. For anybody who's not inside the queer enough question, again, you probably are inside the am I something enough? Am I smart enough? Am I brave enough? Am I pretty enough? Whatever your personal vulnerability. One of the challenges of the queer experience, and as a person who came out as bisexual in the early 80s, is the whole concept of erasure. It's like if you were a lesbian, people may not have liked it, but the people that you cared about may have understood it as a real thing. Whereas, if you were bisexual, then that just meant that you were like an orientation traitor, or that it was just a fancy word for indiscriminately promiscuous. Like there was lots of different kinds of hate that could get piled onto a person that was bisexual or bicurious at that time. Fortunately, the world is shifting in many places and many parts. And now, thanks to the activists in the late 80s and the 90s, we've reclaimed words like queer and so forth. All the way back to the 50s, we've reclaimed this terminology, and that's really great. But the dilemma for kids these days is that when there are so few parameters around, like, well, what is gay, what is straight, what is bi, what is pan, what is biromantic, what is demisexual, we have what is ace, we have all this terminology, simultaneously clarifies things, and on the other hand, leaves people wondering, like, am I queer enough? I'm interested, but I haven't done the thing. I've done the thing, but it's not part of my social identity. I go to marches to be supportive, but people just assume I'm a straight presenting ally. Like there's a whole challenge with being inside the queer community and feeling invisible. And again, to make a parallel to any other, am I artistic enough? Am I intellectual enough? You can switch that, sort of, it's the imposter syndrome, essentially, to any challenge you might have. So Evie, who is brilliant at spreadcraft, as you can see by her cute little rainbow, you can see I've added, brave enough, smart enough. That says good. Believe it or not, it looks like it says doob. You can insert what is the word I'm looking for? Is an adverb, descriptive word there. So that first one that goes down, and again, I would put them face down and then flip them. The reason for that, as I have perhaps mentioned before, is that if that first card, you put it down and the face up and the image of whatever it is intimidating to you or off-putting in some way, then it can affect the rest of your results. You want to set that intention, pull your cards, and then reveal them to yourself. If you have a different way of reading cards and it works for you, of course, do that. But this is the method I would counsel you to use as you're doing your queer enough spread. So you do your shuffling, you do your setting of intentions, you're going to set those cards down, and it's going to be you. That is your emotional baseline. That is you bringing your sort of, perhaps your imposter syndrome, perhaps your righteous indignation, perhaps your concern about erasure, whatever your baseline is, that is you. That is essentially your significator, if you want to think of it that way. That second card, R, that is like the self-truth. That is who you really are. That third card, queer. Are you weird? Are you wonderful? Are you magical? Are you whimsical? Are you the kind of person that leaves other people just scratching their heads? Were you always the strange kid in school? Were you the cheerleader who unexpectedly turned out to be, super subcultural after, fitting in? That queer, that is to speak to everything about you that is special, unique, and wonderful in the context of this question. Enough. There's your 4. That is what you've got right. This is the part where I mentioned you have to be willing to sometimes go, I am good enough, and I do enough, and gosh, people do like me. So that card is there to suggest the part that you've got right. Even if you get a really dark, interesting card, let's say you've got the devil or something there, and you're like, what I've got right. Okay, well, I've got the being driven and exciting and passionate. Like there's something going to be in that spot that can speak to a place where you've got it. And then that fifth card, it's great because in the elemental rose, this was the card of spirit. Here it's the fuck the gatekeepers card. I love that. Fuck the gatekeepers. This is the card about where you have the strength and the strategy and the energy to just, either deal with bullies and dress them down, or just be unaffected as you continue to move on your path of being, gosh darn it, you are queer enough, or you are vibrant enough, or you are talented enough, or you are caring enough, whatever it is. So that fuck the gatekeepers card, you may find it very empowering. And if you're a person who does not swear, insert your strident term here, F the gatekeepers or whatever. I never want to ask you to step outside of it's not necessary for you to be uncomfortably pushed. Like tarot already brings you plenty of self-evaluation and challenge without making you use words you don't want to use. But if you're comfortable with it, I encourage you to say, fuck the gatekeepers. So those are the spreads that I wanted to bring to you today. I do have another video that has some other ones. There's the triage, and there's the kindling, and there's the labyrinth. And I pretty much always come back to this notion of the wild card in the kitchen witchy one. If anybody has any feedback for me, I'm delighted to hear it. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. I'm trying to think if there's any other points that I really needed to make. Perhaps, get my squeaky chair here. I will use this opportunity to mention that even if you're not a big tarot journaler, as in you want to read cards far more often than you want to have to write down a lot about them. Not everybody's into that whole discipline, and that's totally fine. Getting a handful of different spreads that you're comfortable with, maybe you grew up doing the Celtic Cross and you use it for everything. The Celtic Cross is not the best tool for every job, right? Neither is the, WTF. Neither, maybe that elemental compass rose. Like getting a handful, and there are thousands on the internet, of course, and thousands in books that are available. Pardon me. Getting a handful, I would recommend getting something that is sort of a shorthand. Find yourself some version of like a 3-card spread that is useful for you, that you get really versatile with. Get yourself some version of more of a multi-layered spread, more like that kitchen witch, where you've got something that you're comfortable with cards building. Get yourself some version of a big old whopper, like a 10-card spread. Most of the work that you do, particularly with others, is likely to be the shorthand version, but for your purposes as a tarotist, with some hunger and drive to learn more, not only about the cards and the history, but about your own self, getting comfortable with a few different tools would be in your best interest. And I would say the process of some form of journaling, even if it's just that you take some pictures of these and then paste them into your tarot notebooks or whatever for ready reference, would probably be a good step. And then you, by all means, make up your own. The wide world of spreadcraft, as it's called, it is an emerging art form. It's going through an incredible renaissance or a growth period right now. Once again, as we say in the chaos magic, everything is permissible if it works. Do that. So if you come up with spreads on your own that you are jazzed about, that really work well for you, I would, of course, love to hear about them. And, with your permission, I would love to showcase them and share them with the group and with the students. So do we have any other comments in the chat that I need to be aware of?
I posted 2.
Oh, great.
One is to the last spread being more of an affirmations instead of a problem solving
Yes.
spread, and then speaking to using more than one deck when you're in a reading.
Perfect. Yes. So Mission Control over here has made the excellent point that while some of these are more diagnostic, like this one, for example, is like, hey, tell me, little action cam, tell me, how I'm doing, give me a little check-in about myself. Sure. This one is, very action oriented, like help me choose this thing, that thing, help me discover and explore my options, this one is deeply diagnostic in the sense of like, what is my motivation here? What is my problem? What is my damage? What can I do about it? And spreads like this one, Queer Enough, she has another one called Queer as Fuck, which is super charming as well. And I would say maybe even the WTF might fall in that same vein. They are really an opportunity to self-affirm. Like, you're still digging in, you're still getting to the worms under the stones for sure, but they are not about you being broken. They are about society being broken and you needing a chance to shine some happy light on yourself, which is a wonderful way that you can use tarot for purposes of affirmation. Speaking of which, tarot spreadcraft is only one aspect of tarot. We've touched a little bit in other classes on this notion of extended technique, meditating, using tarot, in a liminal state. I would say for myself, probably 5 nights out of 7, the last thing I'm thinking about before I fall asleep is particular tarot cards as a way to create a portal of intention into my sleep state. So there's lots of ways that you can use cards that are not about reading the cards for fortune telling. They are much more about exploring these, we're going to call them archetypes for the purposes of this sentence, exploring these old images with their accretion of history and vitality as an opportunity to get to know ourselves differently. And then also the notion of using more than one deck at a time. For example, if I'm up on my action cam and I go to this Kitchen Witchy spread in this one. Oh, well, so I'm just going to hold this right here. So for the purposes of this, where you can see we've got multiple rows, one of the things you can do is you can use more than one deck at a time. That is a tradition that goes back at least to the Le Normand, the evolution of the Le Normand deck, which is a different whole other cartomancy system, popular in the Napoleonic era. That is well documented that they use multiple decks on the table at a time. It's great to have different decks that you vibe with, and you might be like, oh, this feels like a real cat people tarot question. Oh, this is a real gummy bear question. This is a real tarot of the vampires question, or I'll use my Night Vale tarot for this one. One of the things I like to do is because I have so many different versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith in different colors and different sizes, I could do, for example, that bottom row with my deck that I was sharing with you earlier tonight, and then I can answer the questions with different decks. It is visually interesting because, of course, you have a lot more going for you in terms of working with color ranges and symbolisms and artistic style. Also, if you've got decks of different sizes, it may help you work in a limited space. Like I have a little tiny Rider-Waite deck that I can use for that. And you don't have the challenge of recollating your decks after you're done reading, where you are having to take 156 cards and spread them out and try to make sure they end up in the right place. If you have more than one deck on the table at the same time, also it gives the cards the chance to yell at you by, for example, let's say that you had a question about whether you're doing the right thing, and you got the strength card not once but twice because you've got 2 decks on the table. The universe has something to say right there about you and your capacity to be self-resilient. So having more than one deck on the table at a time actually gives the tarot some extra tools for communicating with you. So I hope that that's useful information. I think that brings us to the end of tonight's discussion on these subjects. Again, my name is Madame Ansa. It has been my pleasure to work with y'all. I'm always excited to get your questions during the week and try to bring them up during class. We have one more week of class in this session. That will be our Halloween session next week. I look forward to spending that time with you, and we will be moving into the new year with new material. Thank you so much, and blessed be.